All right, welcome back. I hope everyone had a great meal. It is 1:02 Eastern, so we will get started. I first want to point out that our final member of the subcommittee has arrived, Mr. Michael Miotti. He was recently appointed to the subcommittee, and he is representing the state officials, including state higher education executive officers, state authorizing agencies, and state regulators of institutions of higher education. Welcome, Michael. Michael, we did have an opportunity to bring Michael up to speed on exactly where we are right now. So the one task that we have for him is to briefly introduce himself and provide his fun fact.
Thank you. I'm Mike Miotti, and I'm the Executive Director of the Washington Student Achievement Council, or WASC, as we say in the state of Washington. I am. We do have the most unusually named state higher education agency uh, in the country. Usually, you're going to be familiar with groups like the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board or the Tennessee Higher Education Commission, the Kentucky Council of Post-Secondary Education. About a dozen years ago, Washington changed its Higher Education Coordinating Board to the Washington Student Achievement Council. We're a state agency. I serve in the governor's cabinet. We work on all sorts of higher education issues, including being the state regulating authority and state authority. My fun fact, I'm actually in the other Washington today. I'm in Washington, D.C., not the state of Washington. It's a city that I have a long attachment and connection to. And it started many, many years ago as a college student. And while I was a college student here, I'm actually at Georgetown now. When I was a college student here, I was selected to be an extra in the filming of the movie The Exorcist, which is getting a lot of buzz because it's I won't say exactly. I can't remember whether it's 10 years ago the movie came out or 20, but there's a much actually it's a much longer number than that you can Google if you don't know it. But I was selected to be an extra, and then when I was scheduled for the scene I was shooting in, it turned out to conflict head on with a midterm exam in a course I was taking with a rather intimidating professor. And back then, I was still young enough to quote chicken out, and I decided I would not even ask to see if I could do a makeup in order to be in the scene. And I just passed on being an extra, so my Hollywood career ended before it even started.
Oh, I was really looking forward to going back to the movie and trying to spot you.
Wouldn't look
Well,
anything like this, all I can say.
well, welcome, Michael, to the subcommittee. We're very grateful that you were able to participate. Okay, so with that being said, we know when we broke for lunch, we were able to get through at least the department's overviews, and we were able to go over all of the at least address all of the suggested red line text. So now I will return. I will turn it over to the subcommittee to see if they had anything prepared. I know that they broke, and if they had any updates or wanted to make any additional comments on what we went over this morning or any additional proposals. All right, Jeff.
Thank you. I wanted to just share a comment that, as in my current role, I serve as the past president of the NAIOP region in TRIO, that's Oregon, Washington, Alaska, and Idaho. We are fortunately one of two states in the country that received Department of Ed a waiver to serve undocumented students in our state. I'm really proud of that fact. In my role, as well as serving on the COE board of directors, I just wanted to offer up that what I'm hearing across the country as I talk to TRIO practitioners is that the expanding eligibility right now to undocumented students is a dangerous advancement given our current political climate, and so much so that I would like to see, I would recommend that we don't approve these eligibility expansions at this time and affirm the TRIO eligibility as it stands. In the future, in a less polarized landscape, TRIO folks would all appreciate being able to serve more students who need our support. and I can put that statement in the chat. I'll do that now.
Okay. And yes, and just as a process reminder, for those that do support, if you have support for anything that someone else says, do feel free to put that in the chat to address your and acknowledge your support. All right,
Thank
Aaron.
you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Jeff. Vanessa, would you mind? I know you're going to be pulling up a lot of different things. I guess that was another kind of proposal. So, just kind of going along with the proposal that we posted for Wade. Would you mind pulling that up, like the issue paper and capturing Jeff's comment. Now, Jeff, do you have any more parameters around that? Like, I know you said hold off now. Did you when, what?
Great question, Aaron. I when is the best time? I just think right now, having a target on our backs with the political climate. I know a lot of states in my region, especially, there might be problems when if TRIO were to be able to serve undocumented population, those schools and TRIO programs would definitely face funding shortfalls or the potential to lose funding for TRIO programs, whereas now we enjoy bipartisan support in Congress for reauthorizing. So I think when the time is better politically, I would love to see an expansion. For now, I'm excited that Oregon and California, possibly Washington in the near future, are able to serve a larger population in TRIO programs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Was that enough, Vanessa and Aaron? You got what you?
I think Vanessa captured it. Vanessa, you feel comfortable with that?
So we're missing we can't quite see the last part of that, but as long as she understands.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. All right. Any other comments? Okay, wait.
I was just going to say, I agree with Jeff. And while my thought is, while this does create this proposal, I think it increases eligibility. I don't know that it increases equity with everything that is proposed with students. And so, I don't know. I struggle with it as well. I just wonder what else. I don't know. I still wonder what else could be done, or if anything else could be done that would expand participation across all programs if we're going to address that. So,
Aaron?
I think we're gonna soon get into Emmeline's presentation. I did want to ask Gaby if she could to talk a little bit about applicant or TRIO participant eligibility as it currently stands, and like what groups are eligible for participation.
Thank you, Aaron. I think to know what groups are currently eligible. Of course, we might need for you all to say, when you say expand the population, what's your actual ideas for that? Because right now, TRIO would be able to address almost all disadvantaged youth. We currently serve the low income, the first generation. We serve individuals with disabilities. We serve homeless youth. We serve limited English speaking youth. So when you say how to expand it to all, what are you exactly meaning? Because right now we feel that it is capturing just about everyone. And if we expand the definition, it would definitely be everyone. So if you all could perhaps expound upon that.
Any thoughts in response, Wade, or anyone else?
If I could say so, I guess in what I was trying to say is how can we expand. I mean, like I said, I understand what you're trying to do with Upper Bound, with Talent Search, and kind of with EOC. I'm wondering across the board on all of them, what is there anything else that could, I don't know. And I don't know the answer to that, but what else could be done to expand it, to expand participation? Because I mean, and some of that isn't regulatory, that's more law, and I know that's not you all and your purpose and stuff, but I think until some of the legislative changes happen, it's going to make it difficult for the regulatory changes to happen. So I don't know if that helps or makes sense.
Thank you. Aaron?
Thank you, Wade. Yeah, thank you, Gaby. We can definitely take your ideas back, Wade, and talk more about it in between sessions, and and either and come up with a response for you.
And just a reminder for, we'll probably say it a couple times at any point, if whatever suggestions, anything you all here, experts here at the table, can propose to help them. I think Aaron definitely has made it clear that they're willing to accept and consider it. Okay. So, Emmeline, I think the department has received your the paper. Did you want to address it, highlight anything in it specifically? Oh, and you're on mute. Yeah.
Well, it was, as a committee, we all did, discuss and worked on this, and agreed. So, I mean, yeah, we could go ahead and present it. I think it would be helpful since we have the time, and then it does show some of the language that either we'd like to include or strike out. So that could be helpful. And if now that we have the opportunity, yeah, we should just proceed with it then. And share that screen.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep, that's the right one. I'm actually gonna defer either to Jeff, if maybe you want to take the lead to explain, because again, he does being a former NAIA president, he could speak on all of our behalf. So, Jeff, that's okay with you?
And I'm just looking at the definitions, and what we're recommending is highlighted here. I don't want to rehash what you can see, but I would ask Aaron or Gaby, do you all have any questions about what we're looking at here in the talent search proposals?
Aaron?
For me, I can't speak for Gaby, but for me, I know where the definition is coming from. I'm sure Gaby does too. I think it'll be helpful. Go ahead, Gaby.
Oh. No. So, Jeff, you are referencing here, you want students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch? Is that what this one is addressing?
Just some clarity on, that we would like that clarification as stated. That would be very helpful in determining that all students are eligible who are on free and reduced lunch.
Free and reduced, not just free lunch.
Exactly.
But free and reduced. Okay.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff, if you could, I know that we can see it on the screen and everything, but just for the sake of the public, just for the sake of the record, the transcript, everything, it would, I think it would be helpful just to, provide, if you can, just a high level. It could be a couple of sentences. It doesn't have to be extensive, but just high level overview for the public watching, for the department staff listening, on what the proposal is, and just maybe rationale. If you don't have both of those things, that's totally fine. But I think that'd be helpful for everybody.
Sure. I think just with each individual school's definitions of what is free, what is reduced, that can be muddled, and we just wanted to make it clear, blanket, free and reduced. And that makes it easier for us as we're collecting data points to select our target schools in TRIO. I hope that helps out. Okay, great. Thank you.
Did you want to go to another point? And
if you want to scroll, I can make some general comments about this.
Well, I was to say that also though, but on that talent search, for the talent search, it's so that a talent search program can serve a whole school. You know, if a predominant number of the school is free and reduced lunch.
Yeah, exactly right. Thanks, Wade.
Excuse me, Wade. So you mean regardless so when you say the whole school, if it's a free and reduced lunch, anybody in the school can receive service if that school is classified as free and reduced lunch. Is that what you're saying, Wade?
Yeah. I mean, that's my personal opinion, I think. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's good to get it out there. Get any, any and all thoughts, I guess, for the department to consider. All right. You want to continue on, Jeff?
Sure. Yeah. Scroll down there. Allowable costs, admission fees, transportation, T-shirts, and other costs necessary. There's always been the discrepancy with talent search and Upward Bound. You've always been able to buy T-shirts to identify your students in the program. This would be helpful here as an allowable cost where it's specific that T-shirts is listed. There's always confusion with TRIO directors and programs about understanding that. Just some clarity about that and attending educational activities, museum and cultural visits. And I think that clarity and adding that in would help us in our programs. Okay. Percentage of enrolled students who are identified students. The Richard B. Russell. If you scroll down, this would be for identifying students that meet the threshold. That's pretty clear. If you go a little bit further, 644.30, admission fees, transportation, and other costs necessary to participate in field trips, ed activities, etc. That helps us with getting students into these different programs, which can lead to internships, other aspects of our intentional field trips and events that enhance programs for students. And
go ahead. Did you want to finish that up?
Keep scrolling. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Jeff, I think Hannah had something. I just don't want us to go past if she had something comment to say. Hannah?
Yeah, no, I did just want to note as we're going through this that the TRIO statute does provide a definition of low-income individual, and so you might want to take a look at that definition as well, since that is, has a statutory framework.
All right. Thank you, Hannah. All right, Jeff, and I think, we'll pause after each section just to make sure the department doesn't have, or anyone from the department doesn't have anything. Aaron, did you have something?
Yeah, I think I just wanted to point out that Vanessa projected the definition of a low-income individual on the screen. Vanessa, do you want to bring that back up so folks can take a look at it?
Yeah, and it looks like they have proposed red text for that.
Yeah, so that's just that was just kind of just pointing back to Hannah. I don't know if the proposals were based on the regulatory language, because it sounds like, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you all were doing the red lines off of the reg language, versus as opposed to say, oh yeah, okay, yeah. So thank you.
Oh, you went back on mute, Jeff.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Back to Hannah's point about the qualifying as low income individuals. If we were able to use the Pell Grant recipients and use that expanded definition to include the Pell Grant, that would provide administrative relief for our TRIO undergrad programs. Just wanted to put that out there as well. Thank you. Okay, I think we discussed this one, 644.30. Other requirements, documentation, meets thresholds. That's pretty clear. If we can keep scrolling. Okay, here we are in upward bound. Emmeline, did you want to take over on the UB? I have a brand new upward bound program.
Okay. Yeah, so again, as a committee, I initially introduced this, but we did discuss it. It's just given over the years, for trying to collect data for dropout rates to demonstrate need for our program has been challenging. One, honestly, schools are not as transparent with their dropout rates because, of course, if they show a high dropout rate, it doesn't look good. I mean, to be direct, and it does affect the funding for the school. And then, point number two, I believe that over the years, our many upward bound programs being at certain schools have helped students to graduate. Given that's one of our objectives, so that then graduate from high school, middle, for Talent Search, upper bound, graduate from high school and go into college. So, we have contributed to lowering the dropout rates. So, again, this has been challenging to collect data and demonstrate it in a way that would help us show need. So it was a recommendation to basically eliminate this one section in demonstrating this one data point in demonstrating need. And I don't know if there was to scroll. I don't know if there was another section in upper bound. Oh, and then again, just take out dropout. And if you could scroll again, I think that might be it. Oh, okay. Then the second point for objectives that was we wanted to propose recommendations was to take out this objective on academic performance, especially since after the pandemic, a number of states or districts, a number of states have removed the standardized testing, and so again, trying to address and meet this objective has been very challenging. Yeah, so not only does it not help with demonstrating need, but also in terms of being able to demonstrate program effectiveness, it's not necessarily beneficial. No, I don't think would be beneficial at this time in helping the programs. And then, as you can see, the recommendation was if we take that out, the academic performance objective, which is 1 point, then that 1 point could be added on to GPA. So the objective for the GPA would now be worth 2 points instead of 1. With the stipends, I'm not sure who. Well, okay. So with stipends, of course, we want to propose increasing the amount. It's definitely the current amounts are not up to pace with current living standards through all, nationally. And for us here in California too, even many of our students have chosen to or prioritize working or participating in paid internships. So if we were able to increase our monthly stipend amount, again, that would be a great incentive for our students to participate. Again, here in San Francisco, we wouldn't have to compete with other similar college access programs that do provide a stipend or some kind of payment that is much higher than the current $40 per school year and then the $60 during the summer. And then definitely for work study, increasing that amount, tripling it to 900 would definitely be more as an incentive. And again, with students, a lot of them work or do what they need to do to get paid because it not only to help themselves, but also, they help out their families. So those dollar amounts are what we are proposing. Thank you.
All right, student, any comments? Okay, Hannah?
Thank you. I just I wanted to note one quick other statutory thing, which is that the contents of outcome criteria for the Upward Bound program are specified under 20 USC 1070A-11 F3B. And I did want to just note that consideration of a student's academic performance as measured by standardized tests is something that is included within the statutory framework.
Thank you, Hannah. All right, Wade.
Sorry, just as we were talking about the stipends, so my comment earlier that I was making when I talked about the proposal that you guys had said earlier, about increasing eligibility, this increases eligibility, but doesn't quite increase equity for students. And that's kind of what I was thinking of was in regard to the stipend. Whenever we're, the proposal of, they can be in the program, but they're not going to be able to receive the stipend like the other students. Again, I'm not trying to mean anything bad. It just, to me, that's almost like a degrading thing to a student. Like, oh, you can be in the program, but you can't get the full benefits of all the other students that are in the program, if that makes sense.
Okay. Aaron?
Thank you for that, Wade. We hear what you're saying, and I think I failed to mention when we started after the presentation is done, the department is going to, I will call for a brief caucus with department staff to just talk through your presentation. I don't think it should be more than hopefully 10-15 minutes, and then hopefully we'll be able to come back and respond to a lot of the things that you said. Of course, I won't say, no, you can't do this, or yes, you can present this to the main committee. Again, it's your recommendation, but I think I'll hopefully be able to give you some overarching feedback on the proposals once we get through them. So I just anticipate a brief caucus just with department staff after the presentation is done.
Thank you, Aaron, for that update. And you all, as a subcommittee, can also go into a breakout room if you need to as well. Okay. Did we want to continue or were there any other thoughts? I think student support services were next.
I'll take this one.
All right, D'Angelo.
I'm going to take the one. As I previously mentioned regarding the Pell Grant.
D'Angelo, can
closer?
if you can, you have to kind of get close to your mic because we lose you a little bit, and we want to make sure we hear every word. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Here on the student support services, one of the things that we want to bring up again. I think I referenced it earlier regarding Pell Grant eligibility for student support services. In addition, it would help with recruitment with some of our programs when it comes to the administrative pieces. That there also have been some challenges with where students who are at the institution but their parents live in different cities. And if a student puts down information like gross income versus the taxable income, and the parent is in a whole other city, that has shown to be some difficulty in obtaining proper um, documentation or signatures for that. So that would alleviate some challenges there. If you could scroll down a little bit more to see 646.30 in section E, transportation, when it comes to allowable costs. We're proposing that we strike the language with prior approval of the secretary, and then change where it says meals and lodging for participants and staff during approved educational and cultural activities. Additionally, down in section G, we're looking to strike the language except that these costs may not exceed 4% of total project salaries. The secretary may adjust these percentages if the applicant demonstrates to the secretary satisfaction that a higher percentage is necessary and reasonable. And so these are some areas. If you drop down a little bit more, I don't know if that's everything. And then the additions at the end, okay, other costs necessary to participate in educational activities, visit museums, and attend other events that have as their purpose the intellectual, social, and cultural development of participant. This will make it a little bit more across the board for TRIO programs, including some of our programs in SSS. And I think the same here is no different than the one above regarding Pell eligibility. McNair, we're advocating for the same for the McNair programs. We are asking for a stipend increase up to $4,000 per year. We'd love to get feedback on that from others. And if we scroll down a little lower, I wonder, here it is, section E. Other costs, we would like to add this, other costs necessary to participate in educational and scholarly activities and attend other events that have their purpose to intellectual, social, and cultural development. So we're looking to add those particular languages specific for SSS and McNair. So we have some of the similar opportunities for students. That's both pre-college and collegiate. And the last is Pell eligibility as well.
Okay. Anyone else wanted to add any additional comments to this? I know that we're going to be taking a caucus. Okay. Hearing nothing. Aaron, how many minutes do you think you'll need? Did you want to do the 15? That'll put us right either at 45 or 50. 45 is 10 and
Let's do 50, and
okay.
that way we have more than enough time. And then if we need more time, which I don't believe we will, then we can let folks know.
Okay. So did the rest of the committee, did you all need to also go to a breakout room, or you're good just going off camera and coming back on at 1:50 Eastern? All right, looks like everybody's good. So at this point, we will break, take a quick caucus. We will reconvene at 1:50. Yes, Cindy.
Crystal, just a question for the department. If you want us in with you, or if you want to send us a message, if you need us.
Well, I'll send you a message.
Okay. So 1:50 Eastern time. It's approximately 15 minutes from now.
Yes, perfect.
All right. Welcome back. Thank you for coming back. We were a little behind. Aaron, do you have anything to add or anything to update?
Sure. Okay, so Hannah's going to go first and walk through some of like the statutory implications for the proposal.
Sure. Hannah?
Great, thank you. So we appreciate you flagging some of these proposed changes for our attention. We did want to flag, though, that the definition of low income is provided within the statute. And so that is a definition that Congress has provided and cannot be changed through the regulatory process. Similarly, the stipend amounts are also set out within the statute and are set at an amount that was set the last time that the Higher Education Act was reauthorized. So we do not have the ability to alter those amounts without congressional action. The last thing that I wanted to note that also has a statutory framework that we need to work within is related to the objectives that I flagged, which is that the Upward Bound program does have as one of its objectives that's set out in statute consideration of academic performance through standardized test scores. And I could drop that site within the chat if anyone would like. But that is something that I do not think that we could strike since it's set out specifically within the program statute.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. Emily?
Yeah, Hannah, thank you for providing that extra information. If you look back to the document that we shared earlier, I don't think we're saying to strike out the definition as there's an or. I think we wanted to add that or and then that definition in red. So it would broaden the definition of low income. And then regarding the objective for upper bound objective for academic performance, then perhaps if there could, it is defined as you said in law, but could there be that a broader definition of then what other testing performances or test tools or whatever could be used that would help us to address that objective?
Just speaking to the definition of low income, I do not think that we are able to expand beyond the specific definition that Congress provided. I would need to take another look at the objective language that you flagged to, or maybe we could discuss alternate ways that standardized test achievement might be measured.
Thank you. That would help.
Aaron, did you?
I guess I can speak to maybe the other pieces of the proposal. In my opening, statement, I did mention that we are aware that the committee was likely going to want to bring issues beyond the scope of participant eligibility. Some of these things are, very in the weeds. Criterion for application approval, points on applications, things like secretary approval of travel for or secretary approval for things that might be permissible to spend funds on in the student support service program. And I just want to go back to that caution. Again, this is your recommendation, but you also want to think about the main committee, the folks who have to vote. And I had mentioned that we make the recommendation here, but no one on the subcommittee has the power to, weigh in on consensus. And we want to think about what the expertise on the main committee is to dive this deep down into the weeds of the TRIO program right now. The time that we have to formulate, the time that you all have to formulate a proposal, and also support that proposal with rationale. And I had mentioned also that, a lot of times when we change regulations, there has to be some sort of, rationale for why that we're doing that. So, and a lot of times what the department puts, well, we are required to, under the Administrative Procedures Act, to put rationale into what we call the preamble of the regulation. So, for example, you all have proposed to strike. So under the Student Support Services Transportation, and with the prior approval of Secretary Sewell, you had proposed to strike that. So there was a reason that was put into the regulation. So I would encourage, the subcommittee to definitely read the preamble to that regulatory language to see the rationale for why it was there. And it has to be able to be supported through something beyond, we think this would be really great for our participants, which it could be, but it still has to be something that can be supported beyond the rationale for why we chose to include it in the first place. And the financial aid, well, the main committee is going to be very familiar with citizen and non-citizen requirements. Keep in mind that the TRIO program participant requirements in regards to non-citizen eligibility mirror the Title IV eligibility requirements. So you're going to have schools and the financial aid administrator. You're going to have multiple constituencies on the main committee that are extremely familiar with what the department has proposed, the one change the department has proposed, participant eligibility. You may not have people that are that familiar on the main committee with, stipends, which Hannah already spoke to, or, allowable costs or, points in the applicant, or actual points in the application for, a TRIO application. So that could be something that, the main committee could choose not to take on because of the lack of familiarity in that area. And like I said, I know that there's desires to go beyond the scope of what the department has proposed, but I would, caution the committee to, going beyond that scope and trying to really focus on specific participant eligibility in the actual TRIO programs. And, so I wonder, does anybody have any comments on that, on what I'm saying? We have, I know it seems like we have a lot of time. We still have one more session in February, but thinking of the other topics on the main committee that they have to get through and get through amended regulatory language for the other topics as well. There could be a lot of discussion about these things that is unresolved and then ultimately doesn't reach consensus, unfortunately.
Yes, Mike.
Yeah, and I'm as a newcomer to the process, I'm curious as to when, and having missed the morning, I'm happy to share some perspectives now. I don't know if this is the point in the process to do that, but so maybe the facilitators can let me know if that is appropriate now.
It is. It is
Yeah,
appropriate.
okay.
I just want to pin. Did anyone have anything to say in response to what Aaron just said before we go to Mike on any subject? Okay. Hearing nothing, Mike, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. So I think there are a number of issues that are important to the perspective I would bring to this conversation. And one of which I would say is that, and I think this was mentioned or referred to at some point earlier, even earlier when I was here, so not this morning, but it might have been from Gabby, if I'm getting the pronunciation of her first name right, is that something I have long noticed and can speak in a moment to some research or evaluation work done on this, is that when we work with secondary students, we find that one of the, in fact, quickest results, positive results that achieved, and one that seems to be pervasive, in any kind of work with secondary students that's looking forward to what they do after graduation, whatever that might be, is that it increases high school graduation rates and increases success within the K-12 experience. So of course the students that the administration is seeking to include, with this proposed change, my understanding is they have a right to be where they are in local public schools, and that many of the services provided by these programs, we in our agency, we run as a number of other SHIO agencies do around the country. We run the state Gear Up program and have done so for I think decades now, and we have a very inclusive model of service in that program. But on the broader sense of these services helping achieve success within an educational pathway which these students have a right to be in, if you look at the evaluation done of programs such as the Pittsburgh Promise, the Kalamazoo Promise, there's also a promise in some rural counties in Arkansas that have been rigorously evaluated. There's more. There's a growing body of work. The Promise program is probably ballpark 20 years or so old. It's been evolving over time. And every Promise program I'm aware of, including some of the early ones, starting with, legendary, Eugene Levy's proposal to his middle school, to his MS or PS 109 in Brooklyn or wherever it was, which happened 30 plus years ago. They start off with the offer of financial aid, and they realize that is not really the game changer they think it is, and they realize they need to support students more broadly across an array of needs, which is of course where Gear Up and TRIO and all sorts of other programs come into play. And every one of those, it's those programs. It's not just necessarily the financial aid and the lure to maybe go on to formal post-secondary education. It's all the other programmatic supports and interventions help increase student success, increase adolescent development and growth. We've seen it anecdotally in Washington. We are working, in addition to the Gear Up programs, we work with about 12 regional collaboratives or partnerships around the state in every type of community. And by the way, we do span, even though states have these reputations on certain political spectrums, we span the full political spectrum on the ground, in the communities of Washington, and we have regional partnerships in rural parts of the state, that are working on issues that sometimes, when I talk to my colleagues in other states, I understand the different political context, and I've been a public official, appointed public official in 2 states. I've been an elected public official in 1 state. I understand the context that people have to deal with, but we have been able to successfully deal with a commitment to equity, closing the gap, and including populations normally excluded from these success pathways in parts of the state that were they in some other state, their own voting patterns are not what the national media would have consistent with the state of Washington overall, or Seattle, where I happen to live, or whatever. But these communities are committed to this work. They support the work. It is very tied into local and community needs. It is a recognition that the young people they're serving are part of their community. Are part of their future labor market, which we desperately need. So there are just so many reasons across K-12 success, community success, economic needs, and whatever, for this country to be more inclusive, in serving the people who are here, who are our fellow community members, and helping them achieve success. So I would be supportive of the administration's proposal, and happy to engage in deeper conversation about how to, make that a reality while recognizing the context that different states have to deal with, and not have it impose any arbitrary evaluation standards or other types of things on programs around the country.
Thank you, Mike. Any additional comments? Okay, so just as a process check, we've gone through the entire issue paper. Everyone has had an opportunity to weigh in and give some thoughts. We've looked at a proposal. We do know that the department is open to additional proposals, additional language. that you can either put in the chat box now, or you can email to both Cindy, Jeffries, and I, and we will get that to the department, the rest of the subcommittee members, as well as the committee members. It is 2:00, a little after 2:00 right now. Emily. Oh, you're on mute.
I just kind of wanted to bring up what my colleague Wade mentioned, and I'm thinking about this too, is so there's been references that some of our proposed recommended languages cannot be changed due to the law. So as Wade said, so will there come a time when there is a negotiated or rulemaking for the law for the Higher Ed Act? He said the last time was in 2008. So I'm just wondering if the department or if Hannah would know that, because then that would be great.
Aaron, Hannah?
If Hannah wants to go first, I can.
I mean, I can't say when Congress is going to reauthorize the Higher Education Act. It is overdue for reauthorization. But, you know, laws often go several years overdue without reauthorization before Congress is ready or able to take them up again. There's really no way to predict when Congress will reauthorize the Higher Education Act it's very difficult to predict.
What would it take, a senator or a congressman to bring it up, and there has to be a vote? I mean, I don't know if you can do a brief summary of what that takes, because it just because a lot of our things is well, it's tied to the law, so then we can't change it. So
yeah, I mean, this is Congress's that it's Congress's responsibility and authority to take up again when it chooses to. We are just tasked with implementing the law as it stands. So I don't know that I have more insight than that.
Okay, thank you.
Aaron, did you have a response to that?
No. Let Michael go first. It's okay.
Okay. All right, Michael.
No, I was just going to offer I mean, this one person's perspective, but a long time ago, I worked for the U.S. House of Representatives for a number of years, and I've been through far too many cycles of reauthorization, not only of HERA, the higher education. I assume this got to be in HERA, right, Ezra? But let me offer some comments that probably would be not with appropriate role of the staff of a federal agency. Is that there was for a long period of time there was a cycle that the core authorizing legislation of many federal government activities was done more or less on a regular time cycle, and there might be a delay here or there or whatever. We're in a very different world now in the United States, in which there is such a divide, over, as you recognize, as you were sort of speaking to earlier, that it is increasingly difficult for common ground to be found. This has been my experience in dealing with legislators in Washington and dealing with this issue. So, it's just something that not to be a political prognosticator, but it is probably going to take, some major changes in the political climate of the United States, or unified control across all of the three, relevant, decision makers: the White House, the Senate, and the House. And the Senate, you have the issue with cloture. That the likelihood of things like this coming up for reauthorization is just very dicey, and the law is what it is and could stay that way for some time. And that's just my opinion.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Okay, so if we don't have anything else to add about the language, we did get through the issue papers. We can adjourn this session. I mean,
Chris, I'm sorry, Chris, give me just the 2 seconds.
Well, yeah, we would definitely need more
Sorry.
heads up
Yeah. I
what
know.
our
I
next
just
steps are.
all right. Can we just do one more break? I'm sorry. I know I just
Oh,
want
it's
to do
fine.
one more break. Hopefully the subcommittee can hold on a little bit longer and then we'll caucus with the department and come back. So can we do 10 minutes?
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kristen. And so
Okay. Thank you for your patience. We're back from the break, and we'll turn it over to the department.
Thank you, Crystal. And thank you all for waiting a little bit longer than we anticipated. We want to apologize for that. Apologize for that delay. I just wanted to start with re-engaging with Michael's comments. I think a lot of the comments that he made were a lot of the basis for the rationale for why the department decided to put this proposal forward. And I stated, throughout my opening comments that we think it is a good thing and we to expand eligibility in this way as we have proposed, and it will help realize the goals of the TRIO programs to engage with and offer services to disconnected participants. We heard extensively leading up to this. So the way negotiated rulemaking works is that we put out an intent to negotiate, and we get public comments in there, and then we do public hearings, and we get public comments there, so people can either write in or actually come to the virtual microphone to present to us. And we heard extensively from the community that the department's proposal to expand eligibility in the ways that we have proposed were something that community wanted. Expand eligibility to participants that are enrolled or seeking to enroll in high school if they don't meet the non-citizen requirements. It's something that the community really wanted, and we have that documentation that we heard from many members of the public that this is something that would be welcomed by the TRIO community. So what I wanted to do, I know we have 30 minutes left. I wanted to open the space, and Crystal will definitely, manage that space, but I wanted to open up the space for members of the subcommittee to respond to Michael's comments on how he saw through what he saw were the benefits of the department's proposal, and what we have expressed with a rationale for expanding eligibility in this way. I know we've already heard that there are some concerns and fears, but I just wanted to get comments comments from the other subcommittee members on what Michael said.
Thank you, Aaron. With that being said, are there any additional comments in response to Michael's comments about the proposals as written? Looks like Jeff.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Michael. Well articulated points. I posted in the comment section again. I just feel like well-intentioned. It is a great policy. Wholeheartedly agree with it. Parts are in it. The fighter in me thinks that this is a tough time to go to battle and have an unforced error or a target on our backs in TRIO, with just given the contentious nature of immigration policy right now. Our responsibility is to protect all of our TRIO students that we're currently serving, with this being an extra possibility for decreased funding for our TRIO students. We just think right now is not the best time for this proposal, as much as it breaks my heart to say that out loud and in public.
Thank you for your comments. Aaron, did you wanted to respond?
I need to wait. I would like, is anybody else from the subcommittee would like to offer? I know, because I guess essentially thank you for that, Jeff. And I hear your concerns, and we had heard those, throughout the meeting. I wonder, is there any other concerns other than what you had just expressed, or that's essentially the main concern of certain members of the subcommittee?
All right, looks like I've got some. Okay, wait.
I think that is the biggest concern. I 100% agree with what Jeff has said. I think this, like I said, it would improve, increase eligibility, but it's still that equity piece. And here's the thing that my biggest fear has been, I think doing what we can as the person that's representing current and former participants is doing what we can to protect them and the resources that they have available for them. I think potentially, we keep going back to the whole political climate. I think it puts a target and can put a target depending on how things turn out in the next however many, we have election coming up, and so what's going to happen? We don't know. So I would worry about what kind of target that puts on TRIO programs and what we're able to do. I think we have worked so well, TRIO programs and with the Department of Education, to build what we are today, and some of the changes we've been able to make, and those have not been easy to get through with Congress. I still feel that what Jeff had said, it's not the time, I don't think, right now. So.
Thank you, Wade. Does anyone else desire to provide additional comments?
Okay. Sorry, Crystal.
No, I think we have no hands.
So Wade, quick follow-up is what, so I know you talked a bit about eligibility versus equity in the current proposal to, expand access beyond those that meet the citizen, non-citizen requirements. How can that's just eligibility, but how can with that proposal, how do you think we can expand equity just within the framework of like the proposal that the department has put forward?
So you're saying within the framework of what you have proposed?
Yeah, just the framework of what we proposed, because as you said, it's not getting to the equity piece for you a little. I hope I'm not
Yeah, no. And for me, the biggest thing that sticks out with equity is that I think I know I've said this a few times. I keep going to that stipend piece, and I realize that's law, but for me, if I were, and I'm not in TRIO anymore as a director, but if I were a director, I would have had the hardest time telling a student, and I realize it might have been a smaller group of students that I would have had in the program, but I would have had a really hard time not giving students a stipend and a resource that would be so beneficial that I'm giving to the majority of all the other students. I don't know. I struggle with that. That's the piece when I'm talking about the equity, that's the one that I keep going back to. So.
And I hear that, and I don't want to. This is not a pushback on your comments or to diminish your comments at all. Do you see a benefit in the idea that students would not have been able to participate in the actual program without the proposed regs? Like, so without the proposed regs, the student essentially wouldn't be able to participate at all. So, could. Or would you say, like, without the stipend, I couldn't support it because it would be disparate treatment?
I totally understand. I understand what you're saying. I'm sorry. I'm trying to process and think of the best way to say this, but I keep going back to that. Second class citizen, I just struggle with it if I can't do something across the board for everybody. And I don't know how to fix that without changing the law, because I realize it's in the law, but I don't know how to fix that without changing the law.
Okay, well, we're reaching the end of the day. What I wanted to do prior to us wrapping up is I wanted to do something, we call it temperature check, right? So it's just to see, we have your proposal, of course, like we have all of your, what you've all put together, what MLN has put together and you all presented on. But just for just the department's proposal, just adding to the talent search EOC opportunity and education opportunity centers and upward bounds, just adding a sixth clause to for enrolling or seeking to enroll. So we do this thing at rulemaking. It's do a thumbs up on your screen. Well, Crystal, do you want to explain it? This is your we want to do a temperature check. Can you run that?
Yes, I can show how we can do a temperature.
I didn't want to. Sorry, I was stepping it up. Sorry.
But I mean, I think we just have
to just
right. Make sure that they're clear. This is, we can only make a recommendation, right? So this is not.
So let's see. Maybe do you all want Vanessa to put the language back up and then and so you can see it again? I know we're probably familiar with the language at this point, but I'd like to take a temperature check. Oh, Jeff, you're right. You got the language. So, all right, cool. So I'd like to take a temperature check, Crystal, if we could, on each of them, like separately. So talent search, upward bound, and education opportunity centers. And so, and then you'll explain the thumbs, right?
I can explain what they mean. So thumbs up means you're in favor. You agree with it. Sideways means, you may have some issues with it, but you can live with it, right? You're not, you can live with it as it is. And thumbs down means that you disagree, and it would not have any recommendation at all from you. So we can do that one by one and we'll be very clear. And we'll just see. Again, this is just to see where you all are, because of course this is a non-voting subcommittee. But this will give the department an idea, really, they can take the temperature of what you all feel. So we can put that up. Thank you, Vanessa. Okay. So for our first one, it's on section 643.3, expanding the talent search project to include individuals enrolled in or seeks to enroll in a high school in the U.S., territories, or freely associated states. How do you feel about this provision? By thumbs, a show of thumbs. Oh, and I can't see. Okay. Wait, actually, y'all are going to have to. I can't really tell, Wade, what you're doing. Or I can't see your thumb at all, D'Angelo. Okay.
You're down.
Okay, so they're all down, but one. Okay. For the next one, and it is the same red line language. Okay, so this one is same language, I think, though, that covers education.
Same language.
Center. Mm-hmm. Okay. Same language, but for EOC. How do we feel? What's the temperature here? Okay, same result. And for the last one.
And Crystal, for this one, it's just that ineligibility for the stipend if the individual is not the law says a qualified alien under parole.
Okay. Does everyone understand this provision? All right, looks like their head nods here. All right, let's look at the temperature check on the upward bound programs. And it's the same result here with the language as written. Is that enough information for the department?
Yes, that is enough information. What we'll need to do is what I'll do is we can probably adjourn here unless a member of the subcommittee, unless the subcommittee has anything further to add. And FMCS will be in contact with the subcommittee on the next steps. Whether there would be like a report out to the main committee, through what format that would be. So I will be in contact. This is how we've always done it. So it's not like we have a whole list of things that you have to prepare to do. So FMCS will be in contact with the subcommittee about the next steps. And I think I think it's time for a thank you for everybody, right? Crystal, unless MCS had something before that.
So just to be clear, you all will be informing us, and we'll quickly get that same information out to the members of the subcommittee so that they know or clear on what the next steps are in terms of a report and when that report might be.
Yeah.
I do just want to reiterate to everyone that even during this time, is there a deadline if they wanted to send proposals before the next session?
I honestly cannot. I feel terrible. I cannot remember when the next session is. And now it's in February.
So first February 4th, I believe, is when it starts. February 5th. So the next session, this session is not the 9th, February 9th.
Oh no, the main committee.
So they start on the 5th.
Okay, all right, the 5th or the 8th. Okay, yeah. I think you can submit, for time sensitivity, we would hope that you could submit it well before then. But for the main committee, we asked that new proposals be submitted by the January 18th. Or close of business next Thursday. So hopefully you will all be able to do that. If you need more time, just let FMCS know, and let Crystal know, and we might be able to work with you on that. But otherwise, if you could try and get proposals in by January 18th, that would be really helpful to circulate them throughout the committee, because I think we have to publish all of them to our webpage and do a whole host of things. Yeah. And we will endeavor to get back to you with the next steps ASAP as well.
Okay. All right. So just so we're clear what our next steps will be, and the manner is still, you all can work on any proposal or anything else that you'd want to send over to the department and the rest of this committee, as well as the main committee. And with that, I think I can, if you had more statements, I think we could. Did you have anything else to add, Aaron?
No, thank you all. I really appreciate you all for coming and taking your days out. And I know everybody has a very busy agenda. These are very important topics, and we really appreciate your time and expertise. It's been a pleasure working with you all today. We will be in contact with you very soon. If you have any questions, you can reach out to Crystal. I mean, if you have a question about just the rulemaking process in general, you can. Well, reach out to Crystal. I don't want to say email me because they're the facilitator. So yeah, but we'll we'll all endeavor to get back to you as soon as possible. But again, thank you so much. There is so much work that went into this, so much work behind the scenes that went into this. And yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will talk soon.
Yes. All right. So with that said, I do send my thanks as well, and we will adjourn this session at 2:48 Eastern. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
All right, thank you.